Farther down the rabbit hole we go. Let's look into OPCD MAHS arrays. Okay, one of the powerful things about this shader is the arrays, and also probably one of the more confusing thing is arrays. Let's talk about how they work. So I'm going to go through some theory here, at least probably in the first 2/3 of this, and then at the very end we'll jump into Unity so I can show you how this actually works inside the shader, inside of Unity. So hang on. So let's talk some of the things we covered about arrays. Let me just recap here. Remember that an array is how the MAHS shader packs multiple texture into a single material. Okay, that typical shader I talked about in some of the theory only really uses like one texture, like one albedo. This allows us to have a selection of multiple textures at our hands inside of there, so we can assign those to different channels. Okay, now I know maybe that doesn't make much sense to you now, so hang on. So what are these arrays? Well, they're a flip book of textures. Okay, imagine like you've got a book and you can flip the pages and you can select what page you want to use. That's essentially what it is. Each page is a texture, and that texture is identified via index, which is just a number. Okay, it's an integer from 0 to however textures reside in that array. There are three arrays that the MAHS shader uses. We've got the base array, which provides the primary color for that material, for that channel. For example, if you want something to look like grass, well, you want to start with green. Okay, if you want something to look like sand, you want to start with probably something that's white. Now you can tweak that color, okay? So just because you start with green doesn't mean it has to be that particular color of green. You can change it, and we can do that inside of the shader. But just that is the base, and consider it the starting color. And we've got the detail array. So the detail array is just that. It provides the detail to take green and make green look like grass, or take um, like white or yellow and make it look like sand by giving it more depth and giving it some more, I know the bad word is texture because I'm using that interchangeably between an image versus texture as in what something looks like, but it gives it a better look, a more detailed look. So we can take a base color and change it so it looks like something else, okay? Then we've got the normal array. The normal array gives the details in base array textures more depth. Okay, so it makes them look a little bit bumpier. And again, it's playing with the light to give it more of a shadowy effect. Okay, so indexes, we're going to be talking a lot about indexes. Indexes are how a specific texture are called when inside of an array. So remember that array is a flip book of multiple textures. Well, we need to be able to identify which one we want to use, and we do that via its index. And so how this works is the first texture in an array is index 0. So that's the most important thing you have to remember. So if you want to call that first texture inside of an array, it is index 0. It's not index 1. So the second texture is index 1. The third index is 2. Okay, so just important to remember, so that if you have 40 textures inside of an array, what would the last one be? 39, the first one being 0. Okay, so let's dig into the base array. The base array by default at the time of this video, okay, has 7 textures, and maybe that'll increase someday. Maybe we'll find the need to put something else in there. Now, this is where I kind of been hiding, we took the red pill, and you want to know how things really work. Well, a little confusing here. The first 2 textures in this array are actually reserved for special purposes. One is surface tiling, and surface tiling is something that creates confusion. All right, so when you're dealing with textures, you have this thing called tiling, so that you'll lay this thing out in a course, and you'll start to see like that your texture is creating a pattern. Well, the surface tiling is designed to help break up that pattern to make it look more natural. And that'll make more sense after we get into Unity in later videos and we show you surface tiling. The second one, mode lines, is in particular very important because it is what we call a packed texture, which means it has an RBGA channel into it, and each one of those can be called independently. So I'm circling with my mouse, and I'm sorry I have to turn on my my pointer here so you can see it better. I'm circling this one, and this is index 1. Okay, so remember the surface tiling is index 0. The Mo packed tile, or the Mo packed texture, is index 1. And it looks kind of funny here, and it's got all these different colors in it. And I'm going to explain that. But this texture here can be called in order to create mow lines on anything. So if you call red, it's the vertical mow lines. Green will make the mow lines look aged, and blue will make the mow lines do a cross pattern. Okay, you just need to know that these first two aren't something that you're going to use directly. They're used in the shader to add confusion and mow lines to our textures. Okay, so more on that once we get into Unity. Now the last 5 textures, okay, so this would be texture 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are the ones that you're going to call inside the shader. And so we have 2 here, which is what we call clean green. 3 here, which I think is, I forget what the exact name, it's like a dirty green. So this is like a pristine fairway. And this one's a little bit roughed up fairway or green color. And then we've got this texture here, which is like a brown material, and another darker brown material for like a pine straw. And then the last one here, actually, the last, I think one of these is used for sand. I think the third one here, actually, well, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 is used for bunkers. I believe this one is for pine straw, and this one is neutral in that you can call it. And because it's neutral white, you can change it to really any color that you want. Okay, it gives you some flexibility. So that is the base array. And remember, these are just our base colors. Then we get into the detail array. Now, inside the detail array, at the time of this video, there are 40 textures, meaning the last one is number 39. But these textures come in pairs, with the first one being the detailed diffuse. Okay, so the very first one here is a detailed diffuse. The second one here is the MAHS texture. Remember, that's another packed texture that has multiple channels that does our metallic, ambient, height, and smoothness. So in this case, texture 0 is paired with texture 1. And then we have texture 2 is paired with texture 3. Now texture 2 in this case is a divot diffuse, so to give it a divot look. All right, and then we got our MAHS corresponding to that. And then we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are paired together. And 4 is this sandy texture, 5 being its MAHS. And then we have another sandy-like texture here, which would be 6, 7. And then there's 40 of these. Beyond that, I don't know what they do, and it's something you can cycle through, and I'll show you how to do that later on in Unity. But the important thing to remember about a detail array is that they are in pairs, okay? So we got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and they're in pairs. Okay. The normal array. The normal, remember, provides depth to the base and detail textures. Okay, going to give it some bumpiness look to it. Normal textures are indexed like the other arrays. In other words, it starts with 0 and it goes all the way up. Unfortunately, off the top of my head, oh, I do know how many. There should be 20 in here. Now I'm going to explain to you why I know that. The reason is that you are never going to be calling the normal arrays directly. They're tied and they're called via the detail array that you pick. So in other words, if you're working with detail array index 0, which was the first pair in the detail array, okay, so that would be textures 0 and 1, that means the system is going to call array normal index 0, so this one right here. So this array texture, number 0 here, would match up to, this is our detail texture, matches up to this pair here. So if you call detail array 0, which is this one, it's also paired with 1, normal array 0 here is going to be paired with it. And how that works is you basically divide this number in half, and that's the normal that's going to be called. So if you decide to work with detail array index 2, which is the divot one right here, which is paired with this MAHS here, it's going to call it's going to call normal array index number 1. And subsequently 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 is going to call number 2, 0, 1, 2. All right, so you could go through all these, but they're going to match. You do not call the normal array directly inside of Unity. It is done automatically for you depending on which detail array Okay, so what's this look like inside of Unity? Let's give you an example. Let me pull Unity in here, and let me highlight this big rough area here. And let's go down to the MAHS shader. So in this MAHS shader, how are we calling the arrays? Well, we have our input textures right here, and if I click on this, well, we've got our OPCD array base textures right here. Same thing, our detail array is selected here, and our normal array is selected here. Now, let's go down to our channels, and you're going to see how these arrays are used and how the indexes are used to call our textures. So let's just look at the red channel for now. The red channel, okay, is red base index 2. Okay, we see that right here. Red base index 2. So let's look at the base texture array. 0, 1, 2. So we're using this base texture on our red channel. So let's go back here again, and we can come down and we can see that we have our red detail index right here. Red detail index is 6. So let's go to our detail. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here is the detail that we're using for the red channel of this rough area. Okay, that's the red channel. Now this is the only thing that's really being shown because I haven't done any vert painting. And if you recall, if I highlight this and I do show vert painting, it's all red. Now, if I were to vert paint this some other colors, this is how we determine, how these indexes are being called. So let me hide my vertex painting again, come back in here, and let's look at the green channel. Okay, so we got the green channel. What is the green base index? So the green base index is 5. Okay, so what does that correspond to? Base 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, it's this brown. So we're going to be, if we use that green channel and we paint, we're going to get some brown looking painting going on here, right? Well, it's going to be brown, but what's it going to look like? What's the detail going to be on this? Well, let's go back down here to that green index and let's look at the detail index, which is 14. Let's go to the detail index here. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. It's this brown rough in here, rough kind of texture looking. Now let's take a look to see what that's going to actually look like. We can do that by doing some vert painting. So if I come in here, I'm going to click on this guy, open vertex painting, open up green, and I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so we can see it. And you can see as I paint, what's happening? Well, I'm getting this brown dirt. So it's almost going to be like a patchy dirt area. And without going back, let's just do blue. So blue is like a lighter brown. If I zoom in here. And then what's black? Black is yet still another. So I don't see the difference in, oh, I do see the difference. So I bet yeah. So see how black has almost this root texture to it? So let's go back and look at these. So if I close my vert painter here, highlight this, black is index 4, which is that brown, okay, light brown. Remember that this one, green was 5, which was a dark brown, 4 was a light brown, and we got a detail index between blue is 20 and black is 22. So detail textures, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, all right, and then 21, 22. So it's these two that are being used. This one's being used for the blue, this one's being used for the black, and you can see, well, maybe you can't see because it's small, that the 22 here is looks like roots, okay? So he's got that root height texture to it, which is why we're getting this root texture here. So that gives you a good idea of how indexes work and how they work inside of Unity.